Hello, I'm Frost, and welcome to another episode of EVE Online Alliance Spotlight, where tonight we are going to be covering Brave Collective. And my guest to talk about Brave is Dunk Dinkle, who's currently the interim CEO of Brave and has been with Brave since its first few days in its inception all the way back in 2013. And Dunk has also been a member of the CSM 14. All right, so time to find out about Brave. Hello, Dunk. Welcome to Alliance Spotlight.
Glad to be here. Quite an honor.
Thank you very much. So I'm super excited to have you on board, and thank you very much for getting in touch and talking to me about the war updates and stuff. Now, for me, Brave, I've been in EVE now since probably 2013, and Brave has always been around, and it's always been the subject of stories. And from where it came from to where it is today is all fascinating. So why don't we start right at the very beginning? So how did Brave get created and what was special about it?
Brave was started back in early 2013 by Matthias Otero, who had been playing EVE just for a little bit of time, and I guess he had been in Dreadit for a little bit and then wanted to start something else. He started up a corp called Brave Newbies and kind of set the initial tone, posted on Reddit like, hey, I've started this new corp, do you want to join it? And there were some people that joined in that first day. Lichten Condor, one of our former CEOs. I joined on the fifth day. I had been not able to get into Dreadit because my Reddit posting wasn't long enough. So I joined Brave. I had played earlier in 2008 for a while, did Caldari militia stuff and got a taste of PvP, but it was the Battle of Asakai and I was reading about things and wanted to get back in. So Brave got started, and it just got started with a very different attitude than what was predominant in the day back in 2013 about how to run an alliance or run a corp.
Okay, so do you want to go into details about that? Because I think that's one of the really key things about how Brave started and what made it so different from the very beginning.
So the thing was, at the time, Matthias just basically accepted everyone into Brave. There was no checking of anything, so it was very easy to get in, which at the time, for those that don't remember, if you wanted into any kind of large group, you had to somehow prove your way, and you had to have the right skills, and there was all this kind of stuff that you had to do to get into something. And Brave said, well, we don't care about that. And so we were just out having fun because nothing really mattered at the time to us. We didn't have anything to lose. So the first few weeks were just roaming around together and blowing stuff up and getting shot at. And about a few weeks into Brave's existence, CCP somehow liked the idea of Brave Newbies, and they did a kind of marketing thing about like, what's this new Brave Newbies thing? And in that, I think they interviewed Matthias, and he said, forget about, in-game wealth. What's your fun per hour? Are you having fun playing this game? And that was attractive to a lot of people, and the growth just exploded after that CCP marketing highlight about us. And it just kind of spun out from there, in which we were getting hundreds, if not thousands of people a day wanting to join Brave. And then after about 3 months, we had to form an alliance because there were so many people.
Yeah, and then obviously, that was the thing that was kind of a landmark moment as well, because obviously Brave, whilst you didn't have kind of the high SP players, you had a lot of players. A lot. And so you could actually kind of harass the old school nullsec groups, right?
Well, it took a while till we kind of got to that state. So we realized that HiSec, we were based in HEC in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And then we realized that HiSec really wasn't a place for us. There were just too many games being played by people that knew the rules better than we did. So we moved into LowSec to Rahadalon, where we kind of started to get a little more serious about the game, learning things. We had our first fights with capitals, against capitals, and it was just crazy times in Rahadalon, just kind of how do you operate this thing? And that's really where some of our initial ethos came from. Besides the kind of have fun aspect of what we do, it was that we didn't kind of back down. Like, we didn't care about the losing ships. We had no ego. We didn't care about the kill boards. And that was kind of the be brave and undock part. But also early on, Matthias kind of set in stone kind of our our view on staying classy, which really boils down to we didn't allow slurs or things that made people feel uncomfortable. He wanted a very welcoming environment, that it didn't matter. Real life didn't matter too much. You wouldn't feel uncomfortable if you were gay or you were from a specific country, anything like that. So our initial like guidelines of how we operated were really set in those first 6 months. And then eventually we made our way to Barliget for a little while, where we then got a taste of what it was like in Nullsec. And then it was moving to Ketch and forming the Hero Coalition. And that's when the power of having 10,000 newbies in ships changed the game.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, in terms of Catch, I mean, that would have been with the time when Stain Roosts were there, right? I mean, that was Stainwagon days, wasn't it? Or was it before then?
I think AAA was there. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time. But basically, we were in Barliget up north, and then we said, hey, we want to do this Nullsec thing. And by that time, we were big enough that we hooked up with some other alliances to form the Hero Coalition, which was, I think, Nexus and Sound Mind and Test. And Brave was the big dog at the time. We had so many people. So we all moved down to Ketch. We got a lot of help, believe it or not, from NC. NC helped us grind out some of the structures as we kind of took the space. It was the different SOV mechanics where we would have to shoot iHubs and things like that. But we would do things like go out with 250 cormorants, and we would burn through structures in cormorants. We didn't have any capitals or supers to do any of this. So we took Ketch, and that was kind of what we call Ketch 1.0 with the Hero Coalition. And by that time, Lichten Condor was CEO and head of that coalition. And he believed in the, quote, orange donut, which meant we didn't have a lot of treaties or support from anyone outside of that Hero Coalition, which in hindsight was not our best
I was about to say
decision,
that could have been, that had its issues as we see nowadays. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted. Please go on.
Well, it's just, the idea of the orange donut is appealing for getting fights, and that's what we're interested in. But at the time, the power dynamics is, if you had super capitals or even a strong capital fleet, at the time, the slow cat carrier doctrine was just dominant. If you don't have an equivalent capital or super capital force, you basically don't have a defense against those kind of plays. And so through an elaborate, we got into a bit of a war with Providence, and then Pandemic Legion got, like, for lulz coming on board, and then they started bringing capitals and super capitals when we could fight them to a standstill with super caps, or with subcaps, I should say. And eventually we didn't have any other allies besides ourselves to come to our rescue. So there might have been one time where we trapped a bunch of Pandemic Legion in Head GP and had bubbled a capital fleet there, and Black Legion came from across the universe to try and start killing them. But then Pandemic Legion dropped what they call the Wrecking Ball, which was their full super capital fleet. So it was a great moment for a lot of people. But after that, they got a little more serious, like, well, we're done with these Brave people, and it ended up us getting evicted out of Ketch.
Okay, but then obviously, times have changed a great deal. I mean, Brave now undocks capitals, supers, titans. You have the full range of tools at your disposal these days. So are you still kind of able to maintain that same culture? Because now it's not just Brave newbies. I can see you've got 64 corporations, and you've got players of all skill levels now. So how is the culture as a consequence of that?
Well, I mean, that's the toughest job I have, is to try and keep, like, the culture intact of not taking the game too seriously, which is hard to do. People, this is a community. It is a very serious game in the world of video gaming, with the amount of effort and time people put in. So keeping people remembering, like, relax, it's just a video game, we'll be fine, we'll figure this out, that kind of thing is difficult, because people want to win, they don't want to get beat up. You see that in the current war that's going on. No one likes to admit they're losing, or they're losing stuff, or there's a lot of we didn't want that. But right now, I just try and stress, like, this game should be a respite from real life. Real life right now for a lot of people is extremely tough, and I just remind people of that. We try and do fun things. We don't worry about some of the things other groups worry about. We don't worry about kill boards. We don't do any participation stats. we try and say, come do what you like. We'd love you to come along on these big strat ops, but if all you need to do is do industry stuff in a station, well, then you're helping us out. So I just try and keep our attitude light and keep it very welcoming to people, so people feel they can come and find community, even if they don't even undock, even if they're just in comms all day. That's part of what our group is about.
It's a very fine balance, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, what creates the serious element of it is the fact that the losses are real. That someone's grinding away to get themselves a Rorke. They've been mining and ratting for 3 or 4 months or more every day. They then finally get their Rorke, and the next day they lose it. It becomes very real. So
no, it's tremendously. It's tremendously disappointing, right? And I try to acknowledge that. I don't know if you watch any of the kind of videos I make. I make a video kind of once a month, how the Alliance is doing. Mm-hmm. And I've tried to acknowledge, when we lose things, we've lost a tremendous amount of infrastructure and catch and impasse during the war in our move to Aquarius. And I try not to sweet talk that or, not be honest, like it sucks, but here's the real situation. This is what's going on. This is what we can do, what we can't do.
Yeah,
and people seem to respect that more than me kind of herfing and blurfing and blustering.
The reality is, this is Eve, right? That is the answer. This is Eve. You just accept that is part of it, and half of the story is rebuilding. Half the story is conquering, and the other half is rebuilding. And you always get a mix of the two. You can't escape that, whoever you are. So one of the things as well is, talking of all these corporations, I've got to mention Hemus Corporation. They joined you guys literally in the last week or two. And they wanted me to give them a shout out because they're a Bulgarian corporation, and they wanted everyone out there to know that there's a home for Bulgarian players in Brave. So I just thought I'd give them a shout out. As once again, like you, I try and be very inclusive, and I like the fact that there's a home for everybody. And any chance I get to help people find that, it's great. So out of these 64 corporations, are they all? They're clearly not all in the same time zone. We've got the Bulgarian Corp, for example. I know that you're over in the US. So, do you have lots of languages now and lots of kind of different time zones to deal with?
Yeah, it's a global organization, which is astounding to me. We have Australians, which are a different breed of cat. They're not so much in their own corp, but definitely there's an Australian contingent. We have a Bulgarian corp. We have a very strong Brazilian corp, very strong in PvP, some of our best PvPers. We have some Chinese corps. We just have a variety of people. I think sometimes, English still remains the dominant language for most part in EVE, and we have players who don't feel very confident speaking English in comms. So we try to make accommodations that, like with the Hemus people, a lot of them understand English and they follow along in fleets, but they're not comfortable, let's say, speaking up in comms when something's happening. So we've had to kind of make sure everybody understands, like, you can't ask them to speak up in comms, they're going to type in fleet chat. So we try to make accommodations, but it's astounding. We have a global organization. I've traveled to EVE meets all over the world. I went to EVE Down Under. I've been through Europe, the US, Canada, and you're always meeting new people that I've known electronically for years, and then you get to meet them in person. It's an amazing time.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? I've done a fair few of the conventions as well, and it breaks all borders, doesn't it? There is no more blue donut, there is no enemy. You just realize, there's other EVE players that share kind of the same passion, that they're willing to get on a bus, a plane, or whatever to go and meet other players. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the conventions.
Yeah, I think that's something that if you haven't been to one of the live events, it's hard to imagine it. But when you go to these live events and you're meeting someone who's your in-game enemy, it all kind of falls away, and you're kind of like, oh, you were there in this fight, and it's like a camaraderie of like, you were at this historic moment, or you remember this the way I remember it. You're of this era, this cohort of EVE players that remember before this or after that. And once you go, I think it changes your perspective, where you kind of see it a little more step back, where you go, we're all these very strange EVE players that the rest of the gaming community can't understand, and that we're all like one tribe, even though we might see ourselves as vastly different. This person is in Imperium, and this person is in Legacy, and this person is in PamFam, but from everybody else's perspective, we're all the same kind of nerds.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you mentioned there briefly Legacy Coalition. So, you've been part of Legacy Coalition for a while, and you're now, at the time of filming this, which is the very 1st of May of 2021, you're there in Quirius, you kind of got your home. What are kind of your aspirations for Brave now? Where do you see Brave going from here? Are you kind of happy with the kind of setup that you've got, or do you want to try and sort of go maybe down a different road for the future?
I think for now, I'm very happy that we've consolidated into Quirius. People in comms seem happy. We have a Slack channel called Criticize Dunk, which is for people to voice their ideas they'd like me to think about, and that's been pretty pleasant for me. I'm sure they'll start criticizing me now that I mention it. But again, our goals are not this epic domination. It'll sound simplistic. It's everybody should log in to EVE, hang out with their friends, and have some fun on a nightly basis. And that doesn't mean we have to be galactic overlords in total control, top of the kill boards. It's just, that's not, I think, our goal. Our goal is you log in, you can have a good time, hang out with your friends, and do the part of EVE you like. So, I like the industry part. I like doing that a lot. So I'm glad that we have those capabilities and we have resources, things like that. Other people want nothing to do with industry. All they want to do is fly around Rome and kill people, and we can do that. So right now we feel like we're in a sweet spot. A lot of it depends on how the war is going to go. Everybody is blurfing on every side about how everybody's, it's a fait accompli one way or the other. But I think we've seen this is a very dynamic thing. And I don't know how it's going to go. We could end up getting evicted. We could end up being completely victorious. Yeah. So for now, look, people are logging in, they're laughing and having a good time in comms, and that to me is like we're doing well.
Yeah, it's not the end. It's the journey itself, right? Not the end result. That's the key thing. It's this war, I think, is that we're talking about now, is obviously World War II. I think it's been just good for the game from the point of view that people have seen to what level we can take warfare, whilst at the same time, it's brought a lot of players back into the game. We've had so many new things happen, and so many new records being broken as a consequence of that. The people will remember it, and that's the thing as well. Whether you win or lose, you'll still be able to say, "Oh yeah, I was part of that. I was there at this battle. I was there at that battle." And I think that's what that people should really take away from this more than anything else. But
yeah, I think that point of view it comes from a very experienced point of view. It doesn't come from a new player has trouble kind of seeing it that way. It's the only life they've known for some of these people is this war and this lead up to the war.
Yeah, well, it's like when you're a new bro and you go, what, my skill queue is 3 months long? And it's like, wow, okay, well, at least you've got a skill queue. I've got a skill queue that's got 2 things in it and it's 3 months long. So yeah, it definitely is something that you grow into. And as you said, it's what makes EVE players the way they are, I suppose. So I'm probably going to close off here. So I think we've kind of covered most things. Is there anything in particular that you want to add at this point? Just to kind of close off and give us a final view of Brave and where you want to go.
I think that covers most things. I mean, the history of Brave is long, and I could go on for hours about all the coup and all the kind of crazy stuff we've been through, the number of times we've been evicted, all that kind of stuff. But I think my main thing is, if you're watching the video, please try to enjoy the game. I don't care what side you're on. The more people that are in EVE is better for the whole game. So enjoy playing, play the way you want to play, don't get frustrated. And after this long year that we've all been through, I encourage everyone to try and get vaccinated if you can. I am eager for these real life meetups to happen, and a lot of that's going to hinge on are people being vaccinated and have we got this COVID thing under control. So I'm going to use every platform I can to get people to help the whole world get solved.
Yeah, sounds good. And also, I mean, you've got an in-game channel, I believe. So what I'll do is I'll make sure I put that as a pinned comment. So if anybody's interested in joining EVE or wants to talk to you guys, they know how to reach you. So great. So thank you very much, Dunk. That's been brilliant, and I've really enjoyed that. And thank you very much for coming on.
Sure, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for the
All right,
opportunity.
thanks a lot. Well, that brings us up to speed on Brave Collective. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Thank you to Dunk for coming on and giving us a good overview of the Alliance. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications. Please come and chat in the comments as well. You can always join my Discord, which is linked in the description below. You can find me on Twitter and all that kind of good stuff. As always, thank you very much for watching, and until the next one, bye.